So mentioned a few slides back that turbidity is, of course, not only caused by sediment, but it also is caused by microorganisms. It can be caused by detritus or plant and animal decay and algae, right? So one way that we indirectly measure the amount of algae that's in water is we measure the chlorophyll, which is what you are seeing here. Now, this may seem to be an even more confusing graph just because the lines are literally all over the place, but let's break this down. So we have our chlorophyll, and remember that the chlorophyll, the only side of the graph you should look at is this side. And this is measured in micrograms per liter. A microgram is 1/1,000,000th of a gram, or 10 to the negative 6. So for example, if we are looking at this, the lowest, if we're looking at a concentration of chlorophyll, that chlorophyll here is between 10 to 20 micrograms per liter. That looks to be around 15. The next thing is we have dissolved oxygen, right? So that's in blue, which is what you're seeing here. And actually, I will switch colors to match, although that might not be a good idea considering. So I'll use yellow to make it a little bit more apparent. So we have dissolved oxygen here. And with this dissolved oxygen, it's in blue. So let's say, for example, we're looking at here. I switched to red because it's a lot easier for me to see. This dissolved oxygen in this case is slightly above 6 milligrams per liter. Reminder, that's equal to parts per million. Now, one thing I did not mention with the previous slide is the reason why it looks, this graph does not look linear. This is because this is raw data, right? These are literal raw numbers. Water quality scientists, they either did their water quality tests out in the field, they brought their samples into the lab, and they just basically graphed the numbers that they had, right? So there was no other analysis, but there's a lot of information you can still get from this, right? So another thing too to take note is this bottom, right? The x-axis. So in this x-axis here, we are only measuring our waterway from September 18th to October 4th. So it's a period of about 1 month. And of course, assuming that this is measured from the East Coast, this is most likely the fall, and hopefully in the mid-Atlantic section, that means it's a little bit cooler in the atmosphere. Now, looking at this graph itself, yes? So looking at this graph, let's take a look at the chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is all over the place. But let's start paying attention to the peaks again and the troughs here, right? So this most likely, this information was probably taken right on site. They actually probably used a sonde, same instrument as what I described in the previous slide. So that's why you're seeing all this variability. But again, this water most likely is not staying still, right? There's a lot of movement in this water body. So whatever periods that they took all of these measurements, and like I said, if that water is moving, that's going to consistently change the concentration that the sonde is reading and sending to the electronic component. The same holds true for our dissolved oxygen, yes? So for our dissolved oxygen, again, we have our peak right here, or a better one actually, because it's a little bit separate from the chlorophyll graph, is, let's say you're talking about right here. We also have our trough, let's say we're talking about right here. Same exact concept. You have a sonde that's measuring your dissolved oxygen. That water is not staying still, most likely. Therefore, there's going to be variability. And that's really what you're seeing here. You're also going to notice or think about not only variability the day of, but also as time goes on. This is a very, very, very brief snapshot of our water body. Finally, the most important part. What are the patterns that you notice? So, the way that you look at this is the same concept of knowing how to skim an essay or a story or a research paper. You don't look at every single word like when you're skimming a book. It's the same exact way that you look at this graph. You don't look at every single peak and trough. You try to take 10 steps back and you start to see what are the high points. If you see a high point here, you see increases here and here and here. There's the same sort of increase, not in the amount, but in the shape. Does the same exact thing happen in general or on average with our oxygen? And in a sense it does, right? So for our peak in chlorophyll, it starts off fairly high right here at about 6, and then it drops. However, even though there's a peak in chlorophyll here, just afterwards, there is a peak here. That is okay if they are not 100% superimposed on one another. Part of that may also be due to the fact that you're dealing with two different measurement scales. This is going on this side every 10, on this side it's going every 2. So that will also play a part in how this data is distributed. So let me erase these. A great example is actually from this section of data. When the chlorophyll or the, oh, I can't see this. Okay. As the chlorophyll increases, so too does the dissolved oxygen, which is what you're seeing here, right? As the chlorophyll increases here, so too does this dissolved oxygen here and here, right? So that's really what you're looking for. What are the highs? What are the lows? Does the other parameter follow that, or does it lead it? Does it tend to happen all at the same time, right? Now you will also notice, which can affect the pattern that you're noticing here, great. Now what you can also notice too is that there are times when the dissolved oxygen is super high and the chlorophyll doesn't quite keep up here, right? And you have vice versa, right? So you have some super high chlorophyll, the dissolved oxygen is not quite as high. And that's really interesting to think about, right? So we showed that the actual peaks and troughs pretty much align, right? But the amount of dissolved oxygen does get affected by the amount of chlorophyll. And here's why. So let's take a look at, it's the simplest example. Let's take a look at these sections of red that I've encircled, right? So here, there is still a lower amount of chlorophyll here compared to the amount of dissolved oxygen. Let's think about a couple of reasons. One of those reasons, it is late September, right? Temperatures tend to cool. So because temperatures are cooling, there is not only more dissolved oxygen, right? There's also less chlorophyll. We have a chlorophyll that is most likely starting to make its transition to essentially die, just as if you have leaves in a tree where the leaves themselves are slowly turning colors, and that's pretty much a slow death as it moves towards the wintertime. So most likely this was a colder day, and the amount of dissolved oxygen is increasing as the chlorophyll is decreasing. The opposite pattern holds true at the beginning of this graph, yes? So we have higher peaks here of chlorophyll. It is also approximately mid-September, right? Now keep in mind with fall in New York City, remember that there is variability in temperature. Fall can be between, it can drop, the temperature can drop as low as, let's say, 40 degrees Fahrenheit and can go up to as high as 80 degrees. So let's make the assumption that because the dissolved oxygen is on the lower side here, most likely it was a hotter day, yes? So combine the fact that it's mid-September, it's still fall, but it's still closer to the beginning of fall, so not all of the chlorophyll, or rather the plants, have died and decayed. So there's still a higher amount of chlorophyll, which is what you're seeing here, and the fact that it's probably still warmer outside, which is what you are seeing here in terms of the temperature. So between the fact that you have your time, you also have the turbidity. The turbidity of the chlorophyll will reduce dissolved oxygen, as well as the fact that the temperature will affect the dissolved oxygen. So that's what's really interesting about water quality. It's not cut and dry. It's not A versus B or Y versus X. It is really thinking holistically about your water body. And that is something to think about as you continue with your projects. Which data sets should you work with? What time periods should you work with? What time scales? And then if you are going to, because you are going to summarize your data, you're not going to present, you could, but you're not in general just going to present raw data, which is what you're looking at on this graph. There are choices that you will have to start making in order to really communicate the patterns that I just went through in this video. And so with that, I'll see you all next class.